Welcome to another episode of the AMP podcast. I'm your host, Sammy Miles, Managing Editor-in-Chief of Corrosion Journal. Today, I'm excited to welcome Lucrezia Scopio, Dr. John Scully, and Dr. Narazi Sridhar. We're always looking for ways to highlight outstanding work and new technologies for our members. In this episode, we're going to put the spotlight on AMP's award program and the remarkable achievements of Sridhar being honored with the Whitney Technical Achievement Award in 2025. This award is given to an individual for outstanding contributions and merits that have received international recognition and impacted the global dissemination, advancement, and understanding of materials protection and performance-related phenomena and processes. We're going to discuss some of Sridhar's achievements with some insight provided by the Awards Program Committee Chair and the Whitney Award Task Force Chair. So let's start with introductions. If you would, please briefly introduce yourself with an overview of what you're doing today at your employer and anything else you want to mention. Let's start with Lucrezia.
Hello, I'm Lucrezia Scopio, I'm Italian. I've taken my master's degree in chemistry at the University of Rome in 1985. Actually, I'm an independent consultant operating in the field of materials and corrosion engineering. I've been working in advanced projects for oil and gas industry, relevant to material selection for corrosive environments. I'm involved in material specification for OCTG and downhole equipment. In the past, I've been coordinating a research project aimed at evaluating alloy performance and safe operating limits. I'm currently working on identification of potential or existing corrosion and material problems. I've been with AMP. I've been an AMP member for more than 30 years. Have been starting working with the Italy chapter, then with the European area, and have been a member of the NACE technical group for metallic materials resistant for oil field equipment and API 5CT subcommittees. Inside AMP, I'm actually covering, I'm honored to cover the position of award committee chair. Thank you.
John?
Hi, folks. I'm John Scully, and I'm a professor of material science and engineering at the University of Virginia in Charlottesville, Virginia. And I am the past chairman there of the department, and I work actively in corrosion research and corrosion engineering. I co-direct the Center for Electrochemical Science and Engineering at UVA, which is a sort of renowned, well-recognized center supplying people to the workforce in corrosion and hopefully producing good corrosion science for the rest of the world. Before that, I was at Sandia National Labs, and before that, I worked for Naval Ship Research and Development Center, and I've been at the university now for quite some time. I'm not going to say how long. In my capacity with AMP, I've been a nascent AMP member for, I hate to admit, but probably 40 years, and at least 40 years. And in my capacity today, I've served on a number of committees in service to this society, but I'm active today as the head of the task force on the Whitney Award, which is a great honor to try to run. And I'm also the technical editor of Corrosion Journal.
Thank you for including me in this podcast. Great to be among friends. I've known John for a long time, since he started working at David Taylor Naval Shipyard.
That's right.
And that's where I met him. And I've known Lucrezia for a long time, after she worked in the Oil and Gas Committee in MRO 175. And I've known Sammy through the Corrosion Editorial Board. My background is I'm a metallurgist. I got my bachelor's degree in 1975 in India. And then after getting my PhD at University of Notre Dame, I started working for an alloy manufacturer, Haynes International. In those days, it used to be called Cabot Corporation. And I worked for Haynes for 9+ years, mainly involved in development of nickel-based alloys and stainless steels and so on. Then I got a chance to move to Southwest Research Institute in 1989, working initially mainly on the high-level nuclear waste disposal program, and then moved later on to pipelines and upstream oil and gas applications and Marine Corps corrosion prevention and control programs and other things. Then I had an opportunity to move from Southwest Research to DNV in Columbus. I was responsible for managing the corporate strategic research group on materials. And we developed a number of interesting programs related to life prediction, risk assessment, conversion of CO2 into useful products through electrocatalysis. And I was also a research professor at Ohio State University, working with Jerry Frankel. And so in 2020, I retired from DNV and started my own consulting company, moved to California, Temecula in Southern California, and where I've been for the last 5 years.
Wonderful. Now let's move on to the awards program and the people that will be honored at the 2025 AMP Conference and Expo. Lucrezia, can you tell us a little about the awards program and what the committee's objectives are?
Yes, I'm very happy to talk with you about this. The AMP Award program represents an international recognition for outstanding contribution and merits. Our primary goal is to recognize individuals or companies that have significantly advanced understanding of materials protection through corrosion control or coatings, or utilizing scientific methods and or experience to elucidate process and phenomena. The recipients of prestigious AMP awards feel deeply honored. We don't have only the prestigious Will Whitney Award, that is, of course, our scientific merits flagship award, but we have also several others. The award program recognizes the members at all levels: engineers, scientists, educators, technicians, and laborers that are part of our AMP organization. There are awards at both academic and industry level, covering also early career stage. We have at the moment 17 different award categories, which are administered by 17 task force groups. Each task force group is structured with committee members. The nomination for awards are evaluated and discussed inside the task force in due time and reported to the award committee members for approval. The number of categories is increasing every year. In 2025, we are introducing 2 new categories. Every year brings forward new ones, so everybody can feel to belong to this organization. Of course, everybody can participate and nominate somebody, and if he feels that needs to be recognized. These awards inspire all association members to stay at the forefront of corrosion science, on coatings, technology, and to remain actively engaged within our organization. The award program has an impact on the global dissemination of the corrosion protection culture at different levels. Furthermore, the award program takes care for next generation. It recognizes the youngers, their effort in understanding material protection and performance, and let them know that their contribution also counts.
Wonderful. And John, let's move on to talk about the Whitney Award. It's one of AMP's flagship awards. And can you provide some insight about the award and what really stood out about Sridhar's candidacy?
Sure. Yeah. First, the Whitney Award has been mentioned several times as the society's highest award, and it emphasizes technical achievement, and a little bit further, it emphasizes scientific achievement. But the winners can be don't have to just be from academia; they can be from industry and national labs and government labs and lots of entities that are interested in corrosion control and therefore interested in corrosion science. When they can't achieve corrosion control, they need help, and it's a broad award that recognizes individuals for their high achievements that aren't incremental. They're really in the what I say the not incremental, meaning that they make a noteworthy change And I'll describe an example or two for Sridhar. So they're not just incremental work, but they break new ground and do something exciting and new, and maybe something that helps revolutionize corrosion control or helps the society. And so that's the award. It can also take on consideration of people that are educators that educate. And Sridhar does all those things. He's a great scientist and a great engineer and a great educator, although not directly at a school. It doesn't mean you can't help people, right, Sridhar? And so he embodies all those things. The winners typically have something that really stands out. And it's not just what I call like a, one success story. They usually have more than one success. And with Sridhar's, that's the case. So you're going to hear me sort of go back to these themes when I discuss his accomplishments. But as he started to say, he did some work in several areas that was very noteworthy. And in some cases, maybe a major step function change. I'll give you an example. So, one of the most famous pieces of work is we had this spent nuclear fuel program, which Sridhar was involved in Southwest. And one of the more vexing types of corrosion that was faced the U.S. spent fuel design was pitting or crevice corrosion or local corrosion. And he and Gustavo Cravellino, and then is it Daryl Dunn? Is that right? Sridhar? Went and developed a way to think about pitting corrosion, because pitting corrosion frustrates designers and people that need to ensure that the waste isn't, the public isn't exposed to nuclear waste, because it's so variable and there are conditions that at first it seems people years ago used to say pitting was stochastic, that it could just happen. And what Sridhar did and Gustavo Cradolino and Daryl Dunn is they basically put it on a firmer footing and made a development of a rationale how to understand acid and reduce pitting. That when you get variable pitting potentials, which is a parameter that a lot of corrosion people like to use, both in industry and in government and in academia, the lowest pitting potential probably corresponded to what was called the repassivation potential. And they had other considerations that they could use in designs. And because the other part about corrosion is sometimes people say, well, we can do modeling today. We can model all kinds of things, but you guys in corrosion don't give us enough information or don't give us enough of the features or attributes. This is particularly true with artificial intelligence today, where people are interested in the features and attributes. Well, they did this back many years ago, several decades ago. And so that's a noteworthy piece of work that really stands out above and beyond what people were doing with localized corrosion. So, for the award, I'm going back to what I said earlier, that's an achievement that was not incremental. It was a step function in the way we understood acid pitting. But Sridhar also did some other things that were really noteworthy and groundbreaking. One thing, he worked on methanol corrosion, and methanol corrosion had not been understood at all, and the United States was about to either repurpose pipelines or transportation system needed to deal with the possible perils of corrosion in methanol. He also looked at CO2 reduction, one of the first to look at CO2 control. I'll say control and management. It can involve sequestration. It could be reducing it electrochemically. And he worked on that. So he's got these areas that come up where in each area, he just didn't do incremental work. He did outsized work. And I would also say there was a legacy NACE award called the Speller Award, which he won. So it's very noteworthy and distinguished to win both awards. Not many people do. And but one of the reasons he won those awards was that fact that the work was not incremental, like we just said several times. The work was groundbreaking, but actually a lot of his work had engineering significance. You could take and have engineering significance. So since AMP currently doesn't have something like the Speller Award, that type of technical achievement, I believe, works under this award. And so it's quite distinguished that when you have something that you can throw over the fence, so to speak, and give to industry, and they can put it into practice. Or in the case of the waste repository, you could actually do something. And the last thing I'll say is that Sridhar has been a visionary also with respect to corrosion modeling and life prediction and risk management. And he has worked for years tirelessly with a small company, and that small company does one of the first corrosion software platforms that calculates many different things, ranging from thermodynamics to kinetics to different forms of corrosion. And he has advanced that and worked in advancing that. Was really one of the earliest examples of the computational modeling, the type of computational modeling that was becoming known, integrated computational materials engineering and design, allowing that to really being a person that was a front runner and allowing that to, or permitting that, or enabling that to be something that was done routinely in corrosion. A lot of people would come up to you and say, well, gee, I can do modeling for tensile strength or yield strength, but I can't do modeling for corrosion. Please help me. And Sridhar contributed to that scene. I could go on, but I'll stop there. But we can see the point, though, of all the things that he did that pushed him over the bar is the winning nomination.
And really piggybacking on that and the brief highlights you gave on your career, Sridhar, can you share with our audience a little about your career journey? You touched a little bit on where you started and how you got to where you are today, and provide some more detail.
Sure. First of all, I want to thank John for all the wonderfully kind words. I think he extolled my virtues far more than it deserves. And also thank the awards committee that Lucrezia heads for, giving me this award. Well, when I started my career, I was working for a nickel-based alloy manufacturer. And alloy manufacturers want to place their product in the market fast because you have patents that expire in 17 years or so you cannot be doing long-term tests. So our focus was on doing accelerated corrosion tests just to show that our product was different from other products. But then I happened to go to Southwest Research Institute to work on the nuclear waste disposal program. And suddenly the requirement was we had to predict 10,000-year life. That's very huge and different undertaking than making a product and showing it to be better than what exists today. So we were scratching our heads on how exactly to do this. And initially, we just went about it like any other corrosion engineers would do, is predict the rate of corrosion of, say, nickel-based alloys. And when we tried to predict that, we found that we just couldn't justify why it should last for 10,000 years. So then we decided that what we would do is take a limit state approach. What I mean by that is, if you go to civil engineers and they are trying to predict bridge failure or something, they take what is called a limit state approach. In other words, the bridge has certain loads placed on it, and it's got some resistance because of tensile strength and fracture toughness and so on. And if the load doesn't exceed the resistance, then the bridge is, stays intact. So they compared the two. And so we said, well, let's do the same kind of approach for corrosion. Let's build these limit states. And if you stay below the limit states, then you are good to go for however long you want to go. And so the question then is, how do you scientifically prove that that limit state exists? And so that's what we set about doing, is to establish a scientific basis for the limit states. Now, we were not the first one by any stretch of imagination. In fact, Bay actually talked about a limit state in his original diagram. Even though that was thermodynamic diagram, he had the vision to talk about these limit states. And then Ellis Waring came in the 60s and talked about it too. So we were not nearly the first ones. And the Japanese, especially Tsujikawa's group, also progressed this area a lot. So what we tried to do was establish this in terms of more fundamental basis of what happens in the chemistry of the pit and things like that. So that's one thing I have been pushing that to other areas. So for example, there are other folks who have shown that the same kind of limit state exists for stress corrosion cracking in oil and gas environment. So now we can try to model long-term performance of these aging equipment in offshore and onshore oil and gas using these limit states. And now I'm working with a large group on predicting the underground storage tank for Hanford radioactive wastes, which are legacy wastes from making nuclear bombs in the 40s. And they built these tanks in the 70s. So now these tanks have to last for decades. So now you can also use this kind of a limit state approach. So, if you really look at where I'm going with this, in the future is to do life prediction of aging equipment, which is going to be the topic of my talk at the Whitney Award lecture, and how to use these limit state to predict long-term performance of this aging equipment. And Scully and Ingrid Mirosev wrote an article in Corrosion Journal Perspective that said that hey, you have to maintain these aging equipment because they contribute to sustainability. And same thing that Jerry Frankel and Mariano Iannuzzi also had an article in Nature. And so I think it's important for us to think about these aging equipment and to use our this kind of an approach to manage this aging equipment. So that's kind of where I continue to be interested in from a corrosion point of view.
One of the areas you focused on during your career is risk assessment and lifetime predictions. I know we were talking about, short-term versus long-term. Is there anything that stands out to you in the work you've done in this area? And can you share a few highlights?
Well, the risk assessment is a continuing activity. So we are still continuing to do risk assessment for various systems. So I'm working on some collaboration with other companies, notably OLI Systems, to do risk assessment of geothermal systems as well as CO2 pipelines. I'm doing some work with the UCLA on looking at hydrogen systems. So that doesn't involve repassivation potentials, obviously, but that involves taking all this knowledge about how hydrogen affects materials and to do risk assessment of all our infrastructure through which we have to put hydrogen. California is big on hydrogen-based energy. And so we have to do a risk assessment of these systems. So one thing in this whole area that is important is John alluded to early on about artificial intelligence, AI. AI has become a big thing. Everybody talks about AI. And it's also become a scary thing. And to me, AI has many different dimensions. One is what people think about. You collect a huge amount of data or you have a huge amount of data and you put it into a machine and it learns about the patterns and the data. You talk about shopping habits or, people, other things that people do, and you can predict how the patterns evolve. And there is a lot of interest in patterns and materials behavior too. But my feeling is that in the corrosion world, there is not that much data. When I go to my clients and I ask for data, that database is a relatively small database. So how do we predict performance of systems using only data? So my answer to that is something what I call knowledge analytics. In other words, you go beyond data. You have to look at our knowledge that we have collected. And where is that knowledge coming from? Well, it's knowledge coming from people like John and Lucrezia and other experts in their heads. But a lot of knowledge is in our in the journals, like Corrosion Journal, as well as in all the conference proceedings. And so my whole approach in this area is how do we collect this knowledge along with the data and make sense out of, predictive sense out of this world. And so I'm been engaged in this Bayesian network modeling. And so that's another area that I think lends itself to collecting knowledge, not more than just data. So I went on and on a little bit more than necessary, but that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Very interesting, Joe.
No, I think that's great. And circling back a little bit towards the awards arena, what does receiving the Whitney Award mean to you, Sridhar?
Well, obviously, it's one of the top awards at AMP, and it's a great honor just to be nominated for it. And secondly, the past winners of this award are some of the most well-known names in the corrosion community. So to be part of that group, obviously, is a great honor. But also, I feel like the Whitney Award gives me a forum to talk about that kinds of things I'm interested in. I talked about knowledge analytics and aging systems. So to me, a Whitney Award is also a forum to forward this idea that it's not just about AI is not a one-dimensional thing. It's not just about data. It's about all the knowledge that we collectively have. And we have to find a way to share that knowledge.
I think that's great. Lucrezia, what should attendees at AMP's conference be looking for as it pertains to the 2025 awards? As Sridhar mentioned, there's the Whitney Award Lecture, which is going on Quick plug on that, Tuesday at 9 a.m. if you are at the AMP annual conference. But what else is going on at our annual conference that pertains to the awards program?
Fine. First of all, I would like to recommend everybody to go to listen to Srinder talk at 9 a.m. on Tuesday, because I think it's going to be very interesting. Then on the Wednesday at the annual conference, there will be a panel discussion that will be held for each of our project award winners, where they will discuss their individual project. It will be held in the theater on the exhibition hall floor to give it the maximum exposure. To guide such an event, a moderator and an AMP representative was selected that will lead the panels throughout the morning. It will be around 4 hours. The moderator will guide through details of the single project. Each panel member would bring a different aspect to the story, and there will be around 5 projects. I think that the annual conference attendee will be very interested in all the details of this project. And it also will likely spur for future nominations. Then I would recommend to follow the student poster, because the students poster program will be again showed during the annual conference. And at latest, I would recommend to participate on Wednesday evening to the honorary night, where all the award winners will be celebrated. So this is the program as it is. Thank you.
Wonderful. And the 2026 call for nominations will open later this year. Can you provide our audience with some information about the nominations and the timeline?
Yes, sure. So I can confirm the key days, first of all, that by June the 2nd will be launched the award program for 2026. We will wait the nominations, and on the website of AMP will be all the information and the forms to be filled. And this will be closed on August 29th. Then we will be 1 month and a half for the award committee to work on the nomination and to select the future winner 2026. And everybody will receive the feedback, I think, at the end of October, early November. So these are our key days, June the 2nd and close August 29. So we wait a lot of nomination this year, also because we have the new craftsmanship award, which is dedicated to laborers and technicians. So it's another part of our program, which is completely new. And also we will add a new award, which is called after the name of Robert Baboyan, which is dedicated to persons who performed work in art piece and so on. This is coming from our NACE legacy, so we will have again an award dedicated to projects.
Great. And John, on to you. Do you have any advice for those putting together nominations for the Whitney Award? What qualities is the task force looking for in candidates?
Well, I think I went over those things a little bit earlier, and they stand true now. The impact, both scientific and engineering wise, of the awards. The idea that more than one success story. Also, people are interested in. Grace had mentioned the student poster session. It's really important to bring on the next generation. Everybody can't do every bit that we need done for the Corrosion community, but if they have teaching accomplishments or they have mentoring or sponsorship, mentoring is not as different than sponsorship in my mind. Mentoring means that you served as a counselor for someone, whereas sponsorship means you actually provided the scholarship money so they could go to school. And, so I think certainly please mention that kind of information if it pertains a book. If you wrote a book or like in Schreeder's case, you could They even take credit for some software, not just the concept of something, things that push this Corrosion Society forward so we can, help with sustainability, help with a safe, highly reliable, low risk environment, et cetera, that we have to operate in the engineering or built world. And so, really, point out all the attributes of the person that's a candidate so they can be considered fairly by the committee. The committee works very hard to be fair and to weight everything. And so what normally is the issue with people, there's lots of good candidates that could win the award every year. It's fantastic. In fact, it's heartwarming for me to see such interest and such good nominations. But it's key for the nominator to put their best foot forward and spend some time on it and try to uncover all the things that are good points. And that's what was actually done very well for Sridhar. He earned it all by himself, but you have to tell people things that they don't know, or that the things that they didn't notice in the award package or CB.
Wonderful. And finally, Sridhar, for any listeners that want to reach out to you to congratulate you and learn more about your career, what are the ways they can do that?
Of course, I'm going to be at the AMP meeting. So typically, the best place is on Monday evening when the exhibit hall opens because everybody is there. Otherwise, there are so many parallel sessions, it's really difficult to see each other some ways. Of course, on the Tuesday morning, 9 o'clock, I'll be at the Whitney Award lecture, and there is sufficient time to meet me after the talk. And last but not least, my contact information is available through Corrosion Journal or the NACE, the AMP website, so they can reach out to me by email. I try to reply to all the emails that come to me.
Wonderful. And John and Lucrezia, is there anything else that you want to add?
I just want to add my congratulations and my thanks to staff and Lucrezia for running the awards committee. And she does a fair and a really competent, careful job. And it's important because a lot of people really care about the awards and don't feel, sometimes people feel they're not getting enough credit for the good stuff that they've done. And so it's an important function. So all of you and the staff, you too, Sammy, for all your efforts to showcase this important award. And then Sridhar, congratulations again.
Thank you. And my thanks goes to the awards committee as well as the NACE AMP staff.
Thank you, John and Sridhar, for your kind words. And I would like to acknowledge all the volunteers for the AMP award program, which work in the task force. And so they've done a really great job in these years where I've been in the AMP chair and vice chair position. Thank you to all.
And I want to thank our distinguished panelists, again, the 2025 Whitney winner, Dr. Narazi Sridhar, Lucrezia Scopio, and Dr. John Scully, for all your contributions to our industry and for taking the time to join me today. Again, I'm Sammy Miles, Managing Editor-in-Chief for Corrosion Journal. If you want more resources for us, please visit our new digital library and store at content.amp.org for more information, as well as ace.amp.org, which is our conference website where you can learn more about the upcoming program in Nashville, Tennessee. There is also an app for conference, which has the latest information about events and schedule. We encourage you to download it ahead of your visit to Nashville. It will tell you about the awards night and Whitney lecture and the things we've been talking about today, as well as the information about the exhibit hall, forum, symposia, and more. We will go ahead and adjourn here. Thanks as always for listening, and come back soon for another AMP podcast.